seen a lot of people that go into professions because, the only reason they're going into that profession is they believe that that's going to lead them to monetary or, you
Hmm.
know, status success.
Yeah.
And, you know, smart, driven people can be good at a lot of things, but if they don't like what they're doing, it's not going to lead to happiness. It's going to be misery.
Yeah.
And, I've actually worked with a lot of people that, they went into a profession not because they loved it, but because somebody said, oh, they didn't know what they wanted to do. And somebody said, oh,
Hmm.
go be an accountant or be, something. And go into sales or something like that, and they were actually good at it, but they didn't like it. But they
Yeah.
told themselves things like, well, this is the only thing that I can do, and if I change careers, I'll lose my house because I won't make enough money to pay the mortgage. And that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
We can, and this is one of the other things that I'll do with people is like, if they want to make a career pivot, we'll look at what are all your skill sets, right? Let's look at everything that you are capable of doing, and let's kind of pull them apart and think, how can we recombine the things that you're able to do
Mm.
so that it matches up with maybe something that you would be more interested in.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people think that, well, I'm in sales and I make a lot of calls and I'm able to explain the product and get people to like me so that they'll buy from me, and they'll say that's the only thing I could possibly ever do. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, like if you're good at influencing, if you are good at speaking and presenting, if you're able to digest a lot of complex information and explain it in a way that's more simple,
Yeah.
that those kind of skills can be used in many different professions.
Yeah.
But you just have to start thinking and looking out into the marketplace to say, what looks interesting and exciting to me. And then the next step would be, you know how do I find somebody that's doing that, who can tell me what it's really like to work in that profession. Because a lot of
Mm.
times people say, well, I don't know what I don't know, and it's risky for me to make a career change. um, but we don't have to quit our job tomorrow and just
Yeah.
go and run off with the circus or something.
Yeah.
we
It's
we
have to
can
be with
be
just
thoughtful.
self-awareness, isn't it? It's have
Yeah,
to be
it really is.
self-awareness, find out who you are and what you
Yes.
love doing and things. Yeah.
And to value yourself enough to realize that you being happy is important.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people will put themselves on the back burner, if you will. They will subjugate the importance of tuning into themselves and believing that they're worthy of happiness, that they have valuable skills, that the things that inspire them are important, and they are. I really think that everybody's here on earth to discover and use their own unique gifts.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So in terms of like you go coaching clients, are they normally like a successful career person and they looking for making
Mhm.
change, or they exactly know what was wrong with them? Or do you have to identify like what's the problem they're having?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, I work with people in three different areas. The first one is when they have a job and they're running up against some difficulties, to help them be more effective in their jobs. So
Hmm.
it could be that, yeah, I like my job, but there's some areas that really stress me out, and it's making me worried, or I'm not performing as well as I could. So in those cases, sometimes they know exactly what the problem is, sometimes they don't. If they don't, I'll talk with them and we'll start to surface those things. The second area that I work with people on is, very often, maybe somebody is in a job and they're not being effective, and they start thinking, I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore. Maybe I,
Yeah.
kind of like me, maybe I've outgrown this profession, but I don't know what I want to do next.
Yeah.
And then the third area is people who are definitely in job search. It could be that they've been laid off, or it could be that they're in a job and they know they don't want to stay in that job. And the people that are at the crossroads, I'd say about 50% of the time, once we start really understanding their situation, they will fall back in love with their job because it's
Mm,
just that they were running up against obstacles that were stressing them. And once they understand how to deal with them more effectively, they actually like their job. And then about 50% of the time they realize, no, I'm done and I want to go and look for another job.
right.
So
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So, in terms of like finding the happiness and finding the career, do you have any steps to follow for your clients, like how they find out what they actually love doing? Do you tell them to like actually do the things they love, or like just think about it, write down how the process works?
yeah, I have exercises that I've got something that's called the career assessment workbook where
Hmm.
they can kind of look back over their career and they just go through all these exercises to help sort of pull the threads out, and really get some perspective on what they've done. And it helps them to understand things like, do I like working with people or concepts or things?
Yeah,
Do I have them go back and look at the success that they've had in career or in life and to write the story of what that was, because a lot of times what we'll see is that there are patterns or there are trends, that
yeah,
they're always drawn towards working on projects, or they're always drawn towards working with people. Like that's where they get their satisfaction. And I always say this, I have this like saying, that you can't read the label from inside the bottle,
yeah,
because we all are just walking around doing what we do. And a lot of times we can't really get the perspective of what makes us tick, because we're just doing what we do. But part of what I do is I try to hold a mirror up to them so that they can see themselves. I might
mm,
say, wow, it sounds like, you're really good at influencing people. And maybe they're not in a sales position or anything like that, but they will have all of these things that they've done where they've gone in and influenced somebody to change their mind, or to, internally sell a new idea into the
yeah,
organization, or maybe somebody's good at presenting or something like that. And because it's so innate to them, they don't even see it as a valuable skill. They're just like, whatever.